Hello, my name is Faisal Khan. I'm doing a couple of videos and this is the next one which explains a very simple and a basic rule of what is called a correspondent tie-up. I have explained this in previous videos in the how to start a money transfer series. You can see the playlist up here. It's there. Basically, when you move money from point A to point B, there are two parties involved. This is excluding banks. Banks do not need a correspondent tie-up agreement. Everyone else who's a non-banking financial institution, like a money services business, like a Western Union, like a Remitly, like a World Remit, like a Azimo, like a TransferWise, etc. If you're a small or a big money transfer institution, you need to have a correspondent tie-up agreement. What does that mean? Let's say you're a small MTO in Miami and you have another money transfer operator in Hong Kong, or let's say in, I don't know, in Philippines. And you both can't just exchange money without you in Miami having done due diligence on this money transfer operator in Philippines. And likewise, the Philippines person cannot just receive money from any entity without having a correspondent tie-up agreement. A correspondent tie-up agreement basically says, okay, I know who the UBOs are, I've done due diligence, I've done enhanced due diligence, I have a regulatory approval, I've seen the AML policies, I've seen the compliance policies, it is in par or we meet the minimum reserves. We have now an understanding how to exchange the flow of funds. We have an understanding of how our pre-funded money will be parked. We have an understanding how to do a reversal. We have an understanding how much data can be exchanged, how much personal data can be exchanged. We have an understanding what will be exchanged when we have a thing where a transaction is flagged and how to approach it. We have an understanding when there's a criminal request or a court ordered or law, let's say a court ordered request from my country. Are you going to be giving me all the data, or are you going to hold back on certain and say, no, I can't give you the social security number, or I can't give you this because it's under US law, I'm not allowed to do that, etc. How will we handle that? How will we handle a dispute amongst ourselves? How do I know that you will not go illiquid? How do I know that you will not have a liquidity problem? How do I know that my funds that I'm going to park in a pre-fund are going to be guaranteed? How do I know that the rate? So there's so many things that are basically part of the correspondent agreement. And those are operational agreements. And this takes typically, on a very good note, it'll take you maybe 8 weeks to do so. On a regular note, it takes about 3 months to 4 months to hash it out. On a long term, when one is an MTO and the other is a bank, it can take up to 6-7 months or maybe even up to a year to hash out such an agreement. But these agreements are essentially very, very at the very core of how money service businesses operate. When you have a certain pool of all those members who are in a pool, let's say you have now a RippleNet or a StellarNet, and you say, okay, you know what, I'm going to have 600 members. The question is, who has done due diligence on all 600? Is it Ripple? Is it Stellar? Is it the operator of this network? And is the operator of the network a licensed operator? Is the operator that have a correspondent agreement with each and every one? Are the liquidity providers licensed? In most cases, these are huge, huge issues. So it's very easy to say, oh, you know what, we're going to have an anchor on the Stellar network, or you know what, we're going to have a connector on the Ripple network, or we're going to have a person do this and we have a person do that, become a liquidity provider. These are all fancy terms. I have nothing against them. But the fact of the matter is that most of them are not licensed. This is why do you think there's such a hard time finding liquidity providers? It's because they need to be licensed. They need to have a correspondent agreement with every other member on the network that they're transacting with. They need to have regulatory approval. They need to have access to banking. They need to have and adhere to the same compliance program that all the other members would adhere to, because that's what their requirement would be. You have to adhere to the very minimum floor that I have, and this is not coming so forth. So in this case, the correspondent tie-up agreement is one of the biggest stumbling blocks that many people don't understand. I personally have clients who are Ripple clients. I personally have clients who are Stellar clients and clients on other networks. And they all had all this great pitch decks and vision decks, etc. But when they went for actual execution, the first stumbling block. How do you have a correspondent agreement with 60 other members on the network that you don't? And many of them are not even licensed. So that was a huge issue. And they went back to the regulator. Some of them have licenses, my clients have licenses, and the regulator said, no, you need a correspondent agreement with them. We need to see your due diligence, because if we do an audit and we find out that you've been sending money across to some person who's politically exposed, or just for some person who's not licensed, etc., and the guarantee of funds is not there, and they're not regulated, and they are supposed to be regulated in their environment, and they are not, then we will fine you, and we will fine you plenty. So this is a huge problem. Having the correspondent agreement tie-up is very, very important to solve. There are ways of solving it. There are many innovative ways of solving it. Yet, despite saying that, I have not seen at present that implemented in the Ripple network or implemented in the Stellar network. I have seen a few examples where they're trying to sort of juxtapose it and make it sound it off like that, but it ain't happening. I have not personally seen any example. It's very fine, one thing to say we have ODL, one thing fine to say we have anchors on the network, etc., but show it to me. We deal with MSPs day in and day out. We have some of the largest MSPs who are members of these networks. And when I sit down and talk to the CEOs or the COOs or the CFOs or the CCOs of them, this conversation is basically a whiskey drinking point. They say, you know what, we did it, but we're not routing any transactions because of such and such issues. And one of the first issues is the correspondent tie-up. Anyways, tell me what you think of the video. Put your comments down below. If you have a business inquiry, there's a contact form in the description below, as well as a WhatsApp number. Till next time, this is Faisal Khan signing off.